God! My God! Why have you forsaken me?
My God, why have you forsaken me? These words from Jesus on the cross have puzzled Christians for centuries. Many believe that this means that the Father abandoned the Son and poured his wrath on him. But what if that wasn't what Jesus meant at all? What if he wasn't forsaken but was pointing to something much deeper? Today we're going to closely look at Scripture to see whether or not Jesus was truly abandoned by the Father. Now here's the key thought. If this was a genuine question from the Christ, it would suggest that he was suddenly confused, unsure as to why God left him. But that doesn't fit the picture the Gospels give us. In John 13:3, speaking of his hour to come, we read, Jesus knew the Father had given all things into his hands, that he had come from God and was going back to God. And John 18:4 says, Jesus, knowing all that would happen to him, went forward, as he was handed over to his enemies, namely Judas. And most clearly, in John 8:28-29, Jesus said, when you lift up the Son of Man, then you will know that I am he. And he who sent me is with me. He has not left me alone. Jesus tied these words directly to his crucifixion. And in the home stretch of his ministry, he knew his mission, he knew what it would accomplish, and he knew that the Father would be with him. And as a bonus, he said when we put him on the cross, that we would know that he was the Christ. So when we hear, my God, why have you forsaken me?" we need to remember these things. The same Jesus who spoke those famous words on the cross also had the Father dwelling in him, accomplishing the works of God. Or as Paul put it, God was in the Christ, reconciling the world to himself. We see not only his knowledge of the situation, but also that Jesus spoke repeatedly for the benefit of those listening. Before raising Lazarus, he prays, "Father, I thank you that you hear me and always do. I said this for the people standing around, that they may believe you sent me." He didn't need to pray publicly. He did it to aid them. In John 12, a thunderous voice comes from heaven, and Jesus explains, "This voice did not come for me, but for your sake." And he often directed people back to Scripture. In Matthew 9:13, he told the Pharisees, "Go learn what this means. I desire mercy and not sacrifice." So he used the word to prod people to rethink the way they believed. So could it be that on the cross, he was doing the same? Speaking words meant to guide his hearers back to the Scripture? That brings us to Psalm 22. My God, why have you forsaken me?" is its opening line. And it goes on to describe the scene of the crucifixion with stunning accuracy. Verse 7 says, "All those who see me ridicule me. They shoot out the lip. They shake the head." Verse 16 says, "They pierced my hands and my feet." And 18 says, "They divide my garments among them, and for my clothing they cast lots." By quoting the first line, he was pointing his listeners to the whole psalm. And here's the surprising part. It doesn't emphasize abandonment at all. It begins with suffering, but ends with victory and deliverance. Verse 24 says, "He has not despised the afflicted, nor hidden his face from him. But when he cried to him, he heard." So far from saying God forsook him, Jesus was pointing to a psalm that proclaims God's presence and faithfulness. God did not abandon his servant, even though it might look as if he did. John 16:32 makes it even clearer. As Christ once again is pointing towards his crucifixion, he told his disciples, "Indeed, the hour is coming, yes, and has now come, that you will be scattered. You will leave me alone, yet I am not alone, for the Father is with me." His fellowship with the Father was never broken. And that's why even on the cross he prayed, "Father, forgive them, and Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." Those are not the words of someone disregarded and abandoned, but of someone who knew, as it says in John 11:42, "You always hear me." So was Jesus abandoned on the cross? I believe Scripture says no. His cry wasn't despair. It was revelation. He was pointing his hearers to Scripture, showing that the Messiah had truly come and that God was with him to the very end. Or rather, to the very beginning, because the cross led to the bodily resurrection, not only for himself, but for all men. As he said, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. And as Romans 8:29 says, he became the firstborn among many. And that's what we'll explore in the upcoming videos. What really happened on the cross, and why it matters for us today. So if this helped you see Jesus' words in a new light, share this with somebody who's wrestling with this question. And if you want to dive deeper into the tough questions about the Bible, subscribe so you don't miss what's next.